Good day. Today we're going to learn how to make communion bread. This is an unleavened bread that we use at Calvary Lutheran Church in Westchester, Pennsylvania. We have a communion bread ministry at the church, and a bunch of us came together, and one of the ladies there shared this recipe with us. It's one that she used to use at a church prior to coming to us, and she gave us a baking lesson on it, and we all practiced it, and it turned out very well. But when I came home and the first time I went to make it, I said, I think I want to tweak a few things because I thought I could maybe improve on it a little bit. So this is my version of that bread. I will post the recipe online along with the video, but I wanted to make the video so you can see exactly how I make it. So let's begin. First we're going to start by pulling out our food processor. I like using the food processor instead of using a sieve to sift the flour and whatever. But the ingredients are 1.5 cups of white flour, and I like using the half cup measurement because it allows me to get into my jar here a little bit easier than using the big 1 cup measurement. So I just obviously do the math, and 3 half cups equals 1.5. So there's 1.5 cups of white flour, and then I'm going to use 1.5 cups of whole wheat flour. And both of these are King Arthur brands. I get them at my local Giant's food store here. Works out very nicely. There's one, and 1 more half cup, and I have my 1.5 plus 1.5, or 3 cups of flour. Next, I'm going to put in 1¼ teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. It calls for a full teaspoon of salt. I'm not that crazy on the salt, so I just use my little salt grinder and sprinkle some on there. Then I get my olive oil ready, but I then just turn this on. Saw this method on an episode of Good Eats with Alton Brown. I thought, now that's rather ingenious. I'm just going to drizzle my 4 teaspoons of olive oil while this is mixing up. And if you look closely, you will see that it forms a little bit of a caking action on the flour as that mixes in real nicely. And then we just turn it off. And I take a nice empty bowl, mixing bowl, and I'm going to put the dry ingredients into the mixing bowl. Hold the blade so it doesn't go flopping into my flour. And then I put that back and get it ready for the next addition. Now I need to create a little well in there. And then I get ready to make my wet ingredients that are going in there. So I'll move this aside, take a ceramic bowl, and into it I will pour 7 ounces of tap water. Put this into the microwave for 1 minute to heat it up nice and hot, so that I can then mix in with it 3 teaspoons of orange blossom honey, and 3 tablespoons of orange blossom honey, and 3 tablespoons of grandma's molasses. This is what it looks like. This is the orange blossom honey, again gotten over at Giant's, and grandma's molasses. You can find this in almost any grocery store, but that's what I use. Alright, while that's heating up, let me share with you the olive oil that I use is a Rosano Organic. I don't know that it matters one way or the other, but I get this at BJ's, and so it's a nice savings. We're going to take our little whisk, get ready to mix this in, and my wife got me this cute little index finger spatula that is just perfect for getting everything out of the bowls. I'm sort of obsessive when it comes to cleaning things, and so I don't just pour the honey in, I always make sure I scrape everything out of it. So I'm going to take my honey into the hot water using the spatula. Okay, put that aside. Next, my molasses. Pour that in and scrape it out nicely. Then again, because waste not, want not, I usually like to take my spatula and put it in there to clean it off in the hot water. Then take my little whisk, mix that up. Now, I don't know if you can see the steam coming off of here, but that's rather hot. I will then move this over, and I'm going to pour the liquid into the dry ingredients. And I will use a rubber spatula to start mixing that up. Don't want to use my hands right away because that can be hot with that hot water. And this is not too offensive, the nice rubber spatula, in terms of being kind to your mixture here, not abusive. Okay, I say that for my pillows. But anyway, so I start mixing that in, and when it looks like it's formed a fairly good cake and not a whole lot of liquid left, then I'll just scrape off my spatula with my finger, get that down into the bowl, move that aside, and then I just start sweeping my hand underneath the mixture to get the flour and sort of fold it into creating a ball, if you will, not round, but you know what I mean, of dough, and start pushing it in. And this way it's also not sticking on my hands too much because I mixed it with the spatula first. Then I just start working it into sort of a log formation until it looks pretty good. Then I take it out and I move my little scale over here. I like to be as precise as possible, and I realize this isn't brain surgery, but I still like to try to keep things neat. So I put it on there, and it weighs 1 pound 12 ounces. Now, isn't that nice? 16 and 12 is 28. So you take 28, divide it in half, and so I should get, 16 and 12, yeah, it's 28. So I divide these in half, and I should get about 14-ounce loaves. Well, that's 13, that's 15, so I was off by an ounce. So I take a little bit of that and put it on there, and a little bit more, and there I have 14, and there I have 14. Okay, mix that up a little bit. Now I have to divide those in half, so I should have 2 that are about 7 ounces. So I do that. That's 8 1/4, so that's not even close. And let's take some of that off of there and put it on there. 6 1/4. There's 6 1/2. That's 7 1/2. So yep, gotta get that ½ ounce off there yet. Okay, there's 7 and 7. So we got 2 that are about the same size there. Split this one in half, and that's 8. That's 6. So again, I'm not doing so well here. That's 6 7/8. That's 7. That's 7. Now we got it. Okay, now I move all that aside, and now I start making what might resemble hamburger patties. I give a big squeeze and pat it into the palm of the other hand, using my thumb to come across and create a fairly tight roll. It's almost like I said, a hamburger patty. I'll do that to all 4 of these. And this is just the initial shaping, if you will. And number 3. And then number 4. And again, I squeeze them, trying to form a nice, tight, packed loaf. Okay, like that. This one looks a little weird. Then I take a ramekin dish. Now, these are dishes that I purchased a while back after my wife bought me a cookbook that had a really excellent creme brulee in it. And I said, well, I got to make that, but of course I need some ramekins to do that. So, when I saw this recipe, and on the back, let me show you, on the back of the recipe card, the lady who brought the recipe made a nice little mold and said that's about how big your bread should be. And I said, well, that's pretty nice, but you know, my bowl is about that size. So this way I can really pat it down and make an excellent loaf. And it comes out real nicely. So I will take my cookie sheet and put this down and continue to finish up with the other three using my ramekin as a mold. Pat it in there nice and tight. Try to make a nice solid loaf. After it gets in there real nicely, I just flip it out, put it on. The other thing you may notice is that either by looking at the ramekin or at the loaf of bread that's coming out of it, is that there is a little bit of a scalloping edge around the ramekin. And while that looks really nice, the reality is that as the loaf bakes and it, you know, sort of expands a little bit, that all just comes right out and you never even see it in the final product. And so we're on our fourth loaf. They're shaping up, and again, they're all within about 1/8 of an ounce of each other, so they should bake evenly. That's always important. And there's the fourth one. And now one more thing to do, actually two. I'm going to take a very sharp knife and we're going to score the top of each of these loaves. I'm going to cut down about, I use a little flaying knife, and part of the reason is the blade is so thin that when I cut down in and the blade is now level with the top, I know I'm deep enough. First in half, then each half in half. Do a little math, and that makes it into quarters. You see they cut and score nicely. And then one final, we're going to take each quarter and cut it in half, and in so doing create 8 parts to each loaf. Okay, there's 6, and then we have the final cut to make it into 8. And 2 more to go. Nicely scored to a nice depth. And then the last thing I like to do is take my olive oil one more time. Let's put a little bit in there, because I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to brush the top of each of these loaves to help keep it from drying out in the oven. And I just little coating across the top and along the sides. Okay, and we go around each side, top, put some nice. The other thing is, when this bakes, this olive oil will add some nice flavor into the loaf itself. If you remember, we put 4 teaspoons into the flour mix when we first mixed it in the food processor. Now we're just coating the outside, and then we're going to move this over to our 350-degree oven, which we preheated prior to this. We're going to set the timer to 15 minutes. Pop these in here, about the middle shelf. Set my timer to 15 minutes, and we'll be back in 15 minutes and we'll take them out and show you how we finish them off. Thank you very much. Okay, we're getting ready to take the bread out of the oven. About 4 more seconds, and then we'll show you how we finish this up. Turn the timer off. Make sure you always wear your gloves, of course. Reach in. Take out these really lovely loaves. Put them down here on some hot pads. I'm then going to grab some more virgin olive oil and my brush, and while they're nice and hot yet, I'm going to give them a nice liberal coating of olive oil on the tops and the sides. Let that just soak in, and when they cool, that'll have a nice flavor as well as a nice sheen. They'll look nice in front of your parishioners in terms of serving them a lovely looking communion bread. So we get around the side here yet. You can see it's moving there. That's good. That shows it's not stuck. Okay. And we'll just turn those around as we finish coating them. One more over here as we turn, and again these are hot, be careful. And the last thing we're going to do is flip them over so that we can get the bottoms with one final. And again, this will soak into the bread nicely, and when I serve these tomorrow at church, well, I don't think I'm actually serving. I'm baking bread, but I don't think I'm a communion assistant tomorrow. Tomorrow being Easter. So I made 4 batches of these. As you can tell, each batch makes 4 loaves. I will then take these and turn them out onto a cooling rack so they can cool nicely. And you can see how the scoring separated the tops nicely, and how that olive oil gives it a nice coating and sheen and a lovely flavor. So there you go. As I usually do it, I showed you one, but now, just to finish up here, I had already made up 4 more in the time that they were baking. You know, they took 15 minutes. So this is my last batch, and I will just turn right around and get these in the oven, and the next batch will be off. So again, thank you very much, and happy communing. Bye-bye.